Hi, I'm Joey Lott, and this is a video in the series that I call Ask Consciousness Anything. And the purpose of this series is to invite you to discover directly for yourself the truth of who you are, not as an idea, but in direct experience. And this is important because really we've had enough of ideas. We've read enough books, we've watched enough videos, we've taken enough classes and workshops, and we have an abundance of information and ideas and concepts and practices, but how much of that has really yielded us the real outcome that we're looking for, which is to live peace moment to moment in our lives? And for most of us, we have to tell the truth that none of that has really satisfied us. And that's why I'm so passionate about inviting people to discover the truth of who they are in their own direct experience, because this is the one thing that truly allows everything else to work. Until you know the truth of who you are in direct experience, there will always be some form of suffering, because there will be anxiety resultant from not knowing who you are. It's just really obvious and sensible, right? If you don't know who you are, you will experience anxiety. So I've got the question for this video right over here. It says, really getting a lot from this video series. Thank you. My question is how this understanding impacts on eating disorders. Like you, I have suffered from a range of issues around eating and not eating for years. How can I use the understanding you're talking about to give me some clarity and freedom around this mess of disordered thinking? So for anybody who does not know, I will just say that for a very long time in my life, I struggled with eating disorders from the time I was about 11 years old, roughly. I don't remember the exact day in which it began, but roughly that age. And it continued for about 20 years until I was about, actually a little more than that, until I was about 32 years old. And so I know intimately what that experience was like for me. And when I describe that to other people who have struggled with similar things, often resonates for them. So you can just check it out and see for yourself that if you struggle with disordered eating, then you will probably recognize that if you really just slow it down for a moment, you'll see that there is a sensation or a feeling that arises in your experience. And this may happen before or after a thought. It's really irrelevant, because the key to this is just noticing that your reactivity is to that sensation or that feeling or that emotion. And because you are conditioned to do so, you give your attention to mind trying to solve what the mind perceives as a problem, right? Because the mind labels the sensation. It says this sensation is bad, I don't like it, it's scary, it might mean that it's going to destroy me, it might mean that I'm going to get sick, I might be making the wrong decision, I don't like this sensation. It tells all kinds of stories about the sensation. But you'll notice that all that happens following that is a reaction to that, and it's an attempt to manage your feeling state. So you can see that whether you use exercise or food or sex or drugs or television or anything, in order to try to manage your feeling states, that eventually that leads to a vicious cycle of compulsive behavior and being run by fear or the avoidance of fear. And this is really fundamentally what's happening for most people most of the time on this planet. And in the case of disordered eating, then that you can just see how that manifests in that particular way. But it's really fundamentally the same thing, which is that there's conditioned reactivity to sensation. And out of habit, we just indulge the reactivity. And if we're engaged at the level of mind trying to solve the problem, then no matter how we spin it, no matter how hard we work, no matter how hard we run, in my case, I had given up everything. I gave up my home, my career, my relationships with all my own family members, my friends, in order to live out of a cargo van seeking for the perfect circumstances so that I would feel that it was okay for me to eat and just sustain myself and be. And so, it can become very intense, but to whatever degree you experience the intensity, the good news is that it's enough. And right now, you can just look and notice this pattern. And you can see that if you continue to indulge that, you will get more of the same. And the mind always says that it has to try this one new thing, this one more thing. It cannot allow this present experience in its raw, unmediated form, because the fear of the mind is that whatever this experience is, it's totally overwhelming. It's way too much. And so I look at this oftentimes in the context of what I call trauma. But really, you can see that whatever is happening here, there's the sensation that's bundled up in mind with a bunch of other stuff. The mind tells a story about it. And so there's a body-mind reaction, and if we give our attention to that, trying to solve the imagined problem, all that happens is that we re-traumatize ourselves. And this is why things get worse, not better, over time, the more we try to solve that problem. So what is the solution? The question is, let me see if I can find it here. How can I use the understanding you're talking about to give me some clarity and freedom around this mess of disordered thinking? And the best way in which you can use this understanding is to really just leave it at that. To whatever degree there is an understanding, be willing just to leave it at that. Don't grasp to claim that understanding or to deepen the understanding or to make use of the understanding. Really, you can see that your whole life has been a reaction to fear. There's fear, and we react, trying to avoid the fear or manage the fear or dress up the fear in pretty ways to make it acceptable and digestible to us. But it never works, and so ultimately the story of our life becomes one of worsening circumstances, worsening suffering, because we're constantly trying to apply our understanding to fix a problem. So really, whatever you think you understand of this, the real invitation is to leave that understanding and not touch it, and instead to remain with the direct experience, because it's here in the clarity of direct experience, not what the mind says clarity is. This is important, because the mind's idea of clarity is a state, and that state comes and goes, and that state is not actually clarity. This is really important to recognize, is that the actuality of clarity is not a state. It's not something that can be grasped or understood by mind. But the mind will certainly call a state clarity, and if you believe that, then you will be seeking to recreate that state and mistakenly believing that that is clarity. And as a result, you will continue to struggle with the same things, because you'll be unknowingly reinforcing the same old trauma over and over and over, which is all rooted in the attention in mind, which proposes that whatever's happening is a problem that needs to be solved. So the real solution is to be willing not to touch the mind and its proposals about problems and solutions, but instead just to rest in the direct experience of yourself as you are, and to notice that your direct experience of yourself as you are includes this pervasive stillness of consciousness, of awareness, that is your most intimate experience of yourself. And if that's not clear to you, you can just take a moment right now and just notice that the you who recognizes who I'm speaking to is not a thought. And it's not your body, because the body changes, but you have always remained, right? So your body now is not the same as your body 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even a second ago. It's a different body. It's only in mind that says that it's the same body, or that any of that, right? That's just in mind. But your direct experience of yourself is always this. We call it consciousness. It's not consciousness, but this is what we call it, just because it points to the non-objectiveness of your direct sense of yourself. So to remain with this direct experience of yourself then reveals that everything is coming and going in this. All experience, the entire phenomenal world, sensation, feeling, emotion, thought, color, shape, sound, all of that is arising in you, in the spaciousness of consciousness that is your most direct experience of yourself. So if we want peace, we should go to peace instead of going to war, right? But you notice, how do we go to war? We go to war by going to the mind, and the mind tells us there's a problem that we need to solve. So that's going to war. How do we go to peace? Well, we have to go to where peace is. And where is peace? Well, we can find this in our own direct experience right now, right here, by being willing just to rest as awareness. So resting as awareness is not something you get to. It's not something that you have to find. It's actually your most intimate experience of yourself. It's prior to anything else. It's during everything else. But it's easiest to discover it prior to everything else. Maybe you find it easier to discover during everything else or after everything else. But you can just start to pay attention and notice what it is that's always here, what does not come and go. And this is your direct experience of yourself as awareness, as being. And as you continue to rest here, what you will notice is that at first it seems like a doing. It seems like doing, you have to do resting. But as you continue to rest, you will notice that actually it requires effort to go to mind to tell you commentary about this experience. And so instead of doing that, which is just this shift of attention that requires effort to give attention to mind, you can begin to really effortlessly rest as you really are. And in this, everything comes to be met. So when it comes to disordered eating, it really depends on the state of that for you. If it is, you can tell the truth. What kind of support do you need? And it's really essential that you take a look and really see how serious is this. There were times in my life when it was so serious that I had practically starved myself to death. I mean, you can look at me now. I'm about 190 pounds right now. I'm 6 foot tall. I'm a big guy, 190 pounds. And you can see I look a little thin at 190 pounds. There were times in my life when I was down to under 120 pounds. So, it takes a level of honesty to really recognize how serious is this. And obviously, if I look like this at 190 pounds, at 120 pounds, you can imagine that's pretty bad. So it requires a level of honesty to admit what kind of support do you need. Do you need support just to eat, just to get basic nutrition? Then you need to get that support. But regardless of that, right? So if you need that support, get that support. But no matter what, this inquiry is essential, because just eating, as essential as that is for your survival, and as much as I would encourage anybody who's not eating to eat, that in and of itself is not enough. That's essential, but it's not enough. What is also essential is to inquire, to recognize who you are, and to really intimately discover directly for yourself that you are that infinite capacity to receive all experience. When this becomes clear to you through direct inquiry, then everything else works in a new way for you. And everything that didn't work begins to work. And that's when, if you've been struggling to eat and you're getting the support to eat, then that starts to become easier. Everything starts to become easier bit by bit as you gain clarity on who you are, and you start to have growing discernment for what it is that comes and goes, because you will start to recognize in your own direct experience that what it is that comes and goes is all activity of the mind arising in you. And you can really trust more and more fully in that as you continue the living inquiry. It really is a love affair. It's a love affair, falling in love with yourself. Not some ego trip, but to really fall in love with the totality of life, of existence, of grace, that is offering this opportunity to meet yourself and discover the truth of who you are in a way that has never happened before. And it really is a miracle. And when you receive this gift of yourself fully, it changes you and it changes the world, because then you begin to share that clarity of presence that you are consciously in the world, not as a way of showing people and being right, but just to be vulnerably yourself and to share the intimacy of that with people allows people to start to have the space to recognize the truth of who they are, and it becomes kind of contagious. Because we really are all in training to one another. We all recognize this, right? If you walk in the room with somebody who seems to be in a bad mood, you kind of notice that you start to entrain a little bit to that. And so we're all in training, and the more that we are conscious and aware of ourselves as we are, the more that we start to offer that space for people to entrain to consciousness, so that people effortlessly begin to wake up to who they are. And it's through this that I truly believe that we hold in our hands the real possibility of world peace, the real possibility not just of the healing of your own disordered thinking and disordered eating, but in the healing of the world, such that no child will ever have to be born into a world in which they will have to suffer in that way. And if that sounds really grandiose, so be it. I really truly see that. That's my vision. I have seen this possibility, and I extend it to you because we're in this together. And so I hope that you receive this and that you take a look and you discover for yourself what's really possible. As always, if you have a question, you can go to joeylott.com/ask. And if you would like to learn about opportunities to work directly with me, you can go to joeylott.com/now, N-O-W. Okay, thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.